Luke 21, starting in verse 25. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. And he spake to them a parable. Behold the fig tree, and all the trees. When they now shoot forth, ye see and know of your own selves that summer is now nigh at hand. So likewise ye, when ye see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. And in the daytime he was teaching in the temple, and at night he went out and abode in the mount that is called the Mount of Olives. And all the people came early in the morning to him in the temple for to hear him. The key to understanding biblical prophecy is this. It's not important to know when. It's important to know that these things shall certainly come to pass. That is the point of biblical prophecy, to convince us of the certainty of these things. In verse 6, Jesus warns his disciples that the days will come when the magnificent temple in Jerusalem shall be utterly destroyed, along with the whole city of Jerusalem. And the disciples ask the obvious question. They say, Master, but when shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass? But Jesus doesn't give them a date, does he? He gives them a sign. Verse 25, Luke chapter 21, Jesus says, And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. That's the answer to the question, when? These signs that Jesus is pointing to signify that the kingdom of God is making an entrance into human history. He says in verse 31, So likewise ye, when ye see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. The vengeance of God upon Jerusalem is the coming of the kingdom of God upon the Jews. Jesus does not give them a date, but he does tell them that the kingdom of God shall make this entrance within their lifetimes. He goes on in verse 32 and says, Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. However, Jesus does not specify whether the signs mean that the kingdom of God is near in terms of time or in terms of proximity. In other words, is the kingdom of God like old age? You know, for a youth, old age is something in the future. And there are signs that accompany old age, like wrinkles and gray hair and things like that. Well, as long as you don't have those signs, you don't have to worry about old age, right?
Amen.
You're a youth, you don't even worry about it. It's somewhere in the future. But maybe the kingdom of God is more like an event that is already going on, but is getting nearer in terms of proximity. Kind of like a parade. If you're at the end of a parade route, you don't see the parade. You're just standing there. The parade is going on, and it's getting closer to you. But it's already happening. You just don't see it yet. There are signs that point to the approaching parade. You may see the traffic stop. You may hear music, things like that. And here, I better get ready. The parade is almost here. Well, the kingdom of God is a little like both of those. There, of course, shall be a cataclysmic end of this world, and in its place shall be the kingdom of God in the form of a new heavens and a new earth. And for those who happen to be alive at the end of the world, the words, "There shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars," shall have a very special significance that many of us will probably never understand. But the kingdom of God is also like an everlasting parade that zigzags in and out of human history. So when Jesus says the kingdom of God is nigh at hand for the Jews, he is not necessarily saying that it is the end of the world. Although, it would be the end of the world for many of those Jews, wouldn't it? He is saying that the kingdom of God is close in proximity. It's about to come upon them. The coming of the kingdom of God upon the Jews will be a bad thing for some. Look at verse 23. Jesus says, "There shall be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive unto all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." That sounds like a bad thing, right? That's kind of bad. But the coming of the kingdom of God upon the Jews will also be a good thing for another group of people. For Jesus says in verse 28, "And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh." That sounds like a good thing. Therefore, the coming of the kingdom of God was judgment between two different groups of people. Group one are those who are surprised by God's judgment. As Jesus said in verse 35, "For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth." Well, you know what a snare is, right? You ever hunt rabbits with a snare? I haven't, but I've seen pictures of it. The whole point is it's a surprise to the rabbit when it gets snared. If it's not a surprise, then the trap isn't going to work. They're surprised by the judgment. That's one group of people. But then there is this other group of people who watch for the judgment. Jesus says in verse 36, "Watch ye therefore and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man." So, to summarize then, the kingdom of God is God's judgment between those who ignore Him and those who watch for Him. And those who ignore Him are subject to large-scale suffering and death. But those who watch for Him escape the large-scale suffering and death, and they stand before the Lord. Now, as we've talked about this before, how the clues that Jesus gave them in this chapter allowed many of the Christians in Jerusalem to get out before the siege by the Romans began, the destruction began. So although Jesus speaks with certainty that the Jews shall come under judgment in the lifetimes of most of His audience, He does not exempt future generations or even past generations from that same kind